Greetings, everyone. This is Payman Lorenzo, your host of the Leaders with a Heart podcast. Today, I have a real, true, authentic leader with a heart, my friend Daniel Lamberth from Linköping, a beautiful city 2 hours south from Stockholm in Sweden. He's a true leader with a heart, as I said, because he's been working as a social worker for the past 16 years, 10 years in corporate himself, and the past 6 years he started and has been running a shelter for helping honor oppression victims and all that. So we're gonna talk about that in a moment because that's absolutely amazing. When I heard this story, I said, "Listen, I need to have you on the podcast because that's a beautiful story." And yeah, so finally here is. Welcome to the show, my friend Daniel.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Pleasure is all mine. So for people who don't know you, who's Daniel?
Okay, I'm a 43-year-old Swede, tall guy, married to a fantastic Brazilian woman. I am an avid fisherman and been working as a social worker most part of my life. Have transitioned a few times in different types of that work, but my driving thing has always been that I want to be part of other people's growth in some way.
That's awesome. We're gonna talk about that in a moment, but first I want to ask you some question to get to know you and to have a heart-to-heart conversation. So tell us, Daniel, what makes you happy?
Well, when I feel best about myself is actually when I have somebody in front of me that has a breakthrough and that I'm being part of that breakthrough. And it can be helping somebody see something or just helping somebody practically, but it can also be as in my work, it's been helping somebody see how they can get through a hard period in their life, for example, or understanding that something is not their fault when it shouldn't be their fault. I'm talking about trauma, for example. But then there are other things. I'm also really happy when I tend to myself, and when I'm on my boat, when I'm on the water, I'm really happy then. And when I'm doing things and everything is harmonic with my family, there's happiness can take many different forms.
Yes, you mentioned fishing. And that's something quite common in Canada. It's ice fishing. Do you do that also in Sweden?
Yeah, we do that, but it's not actually my favorite. I prefer the open water.
I see.
But
Okay.
it's big here, of course. Still, it's a cold country, so
yeah. Awesome. Now, what makes you smile?
actually, yeah, I would say that's being with other people, being part of other people's joy, but just a good joke as well too.
Are you a joker?
Uh, Not if you ask my wife. She thinks I'm fairly boring, but yeah, sometimes, yeah, sure.
Awesome. Cool. Now, what makes you come alive?
When I come alive, that is a good question.
That you really become excited and almost like passionate, ready to go like a lion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, uh, uh, a situation I'm thinking about right off the bat is a woman I talked to for a few weeks back, actually, and I was helping her to get rid of her procrastination. She was in a major, studying to be a major, and she was a bit stuck. And working with her on that call, seeing like the coins fall down, and her excitement that really spiked my excitement as well. And that goes actually back to when I started out, when I was younger and I didn't know what to study. I had many different options. I settled on one thing, and that was that I really wanted to somehow work in a setting where I was part of other people's growth and development. And that of course could be I could be a teacher, I could be a doctor, there was many options. I chose to be a social worker out of some just situations that spurred me towards that actually. But it's been with me ever since, and that is really something that gives me excitement. It makes me come alive when I see something build up like that, especially when it's people then. But I'm also sort of a nerd, so I can dive down in some technical thing or with my fishing, just dive down in very, very nerdy classes of how I can improve there. That is another type of coming alive, another type of excitement, but they both have their place.
Absolutely. Now, what makes you sad and angry?
Well, that's easy. What makes me most angry is when people are treated unfairly. And that really ticks me off pretty hard. But also sometimes being misunderstood myself.
Yes.
Sometimes choices that I have made when I think back of them that were not the best choices can make me sad. I'm a very, I would say I'm very empathic. So I take in others' feelings a lot as well. So another person being sad can affect me to be sad as well. I think that's both a curse and a blessing, actually. It helps me in what I'm doing, but it's sometimes it would be nice to be without it.
Sure. Have you been an empath all of your life, or is it something that you started to develop as you started working in the social working world?
No, I think I have been that way pretty much all my life. I started out very early. I became a pathfinder leader, and at that time I kind of realized that, and I went in to help kids in school even before I was studying for a social worker, and that's probably when I realized I had that sense. But yeah, I think all my life, rather than, of course, connecting it with skills and knowledge has helped me to utilize it, but it's been there before.
Sure. Wow. Okay. Now, what scares you?
I think right now, the development of the world right now.
Yes.
That is, but on a personal level, not making the most out of myself before it's too late. That's also something that can scare me. So, but on a grand scale, definitely where I feel the world is headed at the moment.
So speaking of that, let's say that tomorrow God were to come to you and say, Daniel, you're an amazing person. I want to appoint you the leader of planet Earth. What would be the number one thing you would do to make the world a better place? You have all powers to make the world a better place. What would be the first thing you would do?
All powers. Does
Powers to do
that
good.
entail bending the free will?
Well, you can only use your power for good. You cannot use it for
Yeah.
personal reasons and
Oh,
for
of course,
evil,
of
you know.
course.
Yeah. Well, personal reason as long as they get it for the good of humanity, you know.
Well, I would, I think I would want to install a care and love mentality in people
Mm,
all over the world.
yes.
Uh, I've always thought that if people actually cared about the person next to them, if everybody did that, we wouldn't need social services. We wouldn't
Yes.
need a lot of things that has to be in place today. We would not need. Um, and so that would be my, if that could be done, that would be my first. Uh,
Awesome.
you know, yeah,
I agree. And just like you said, if everybody were to realize that doesn't matter if the person next to you is black, white, green, blue, purple, whatever, we all connected. We're all one. You know, if you
yeah,
harm if you harm the person next to you, you're basically harming yourself because at the soul level, we're all one. We're all connected. You're harming yourself. So love that.
exactly.
Okay. So what would you say is your personal superpower?
My personal superpower is getting understanding and creating an alliance with another person,
Mm,
uh, to step into their situation and help facilitate some kind of change. Uh, that I would say is my superpower.
awesome. Now let me ask you some fun questions now. You know, when we were kids, growing up, everybody asked us, whether it's parents, teachers, family. So, Daniel, what do you want to become when you grow up? What was your answer when you were a kid?
I think a firefighter was the first one I thought
Yes,
about.
yes. Hmm. So, why did you not become a firefighter? What happened?
Well, I actually did my military service as
Oh,
a
wow.
firefighter on a civil airport.
Hmm.
Uh, and at that time, I realized that I really admire the people that do that work, but I also
Hmm.
realized that the people that do that work, uh, they have a great fellowship with each other, but they
Sure.
don't develop. They don't. In my mind, then I didn't think that they were developing their mental side so much, like or more, I should say, intellectual side,
Mm,
and that was something that I wanted to make sure I did. That was one part. The other part was that I realized that it is a high risk job,
sure.
and I was imagining my future
Hmm.
wife, and I didn't want to have a situation where whenever I went to work, she would worry. Uh, that doesn't mean that she would, but it was the governing thought for me at that time that made me
Sure.
choose another
Hmm.
direction.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, when you were a kid in school, what was your favorite subject?
Woodwork.
Ah, nice. Like a lumberjack and all that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I got the highest grade in my woodwork class actually.
That's awesome.
Uh, but I liked the work with my hands, and I kind of still do. I wouldn't say I'm super practical, but the creation process was nice. I also at times liked the physical education
Mm-hmm.
classes, but that was
Sure.
much depending on the type of the day.
Mm-hmm. So, are you still doing any wood creation?
Not really, no. I'm not. Um, well, I have actually carved some baits for my fishing. uh,
Have
so
you
I
built
did.
any? Have you built any piece of furniture or anything in the house or anything like that?
Well, not built furniture, but I've been putting up pictures and
Oh,
stuff like that.
nice. Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And what would you say was a subject in school that you could not stand?
I think depending on what grade I was in, but the first thought is biology. And
Why?
well, I think it was due to the teacher, and I had some
Uh-huh.
trouble with it. But then actually, my uncle taught me a way to study that I used for a biology test, and
Mm-hmm.
I aced that test.
Nice.
So then I got inspired instead. But and now I think biology is super important, especially when
Sure.
it comes to the brain and stuff like that, and everything
Mm-hmm.
that goes on in there. It's amazing. But at
Sure.
that time, yeah. And then at another part it was history, but that was due to an extremely boring teacher in my mind. Uh, there are some subjects that
Yes.
require a teacher. When you're young, it requires a teacher that makes it interesting. I had one
Absolutely.
teacher at one level that made everything. It was I was glued to the bench and taking everything in. And then another teacher with the same subject, I just wanted to kind of fall asleep. So
Exactly.
yeah,
I guess we all have had that kind of those kind of experiences with teachers. For me, it was math. I had a math teacher that was absolutely very boring, and as a result of that, I lost all interest in math. And
now
you
you're
know,
breaking up a little bit for me here.
oh really? Okay. Is it? Yeah, I hear you because I also had some one boring teacher about math that made me lose all interest in math, but that's a different story. I
Uh,
guess we all have had that kind of experience, one bad teacher and one amazing teacher. That's for sure. Now
yeah.
let's move forward. Looking back at your path from the time that you finished school to now, how would you describe your path? Would you say that as soon as you finished school, you got into one line, one path, and it was pretty much straight sailing, smooth forward all the way? Was it like turns and twists, changing direction and all that? So how would you describe your path from schooling to now?
Well, for a while, it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of a set path.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I started out as I mentioned, I was a pathfinder before anything happened.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Somebody then saw me do that work that was working in a social work, and they needed a person to help a guy that was trouble uh,
Mm-hmm.
to come back into school, and they assigned me to be on the side of him.
Okay.
Uh, that led me into applying for a social degree, social work degree at the university.
Mm-hmm.
In the university, I did my practical part of the training at a detached youth work center, or not a center actually, it was detached youth work.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in Sweden, there is social workers that are out where the teenagers and young adults are. So we didn't have
Sure.
an office per se. And I ended up getting hired into there after I got done with my university degree.
Very
And
nice.
I worked within that for 10 years. Uh, and during that time, I figured I didn't have a clue what else I could ever do, because that felt like me. And I was good at it. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I still today have now adults coming up to me and thanking me for what I did 10 years ago, and most of the times maybe I don't even recognize them, but
Sure.
there is something that we can find our remembering each other on. So but at the end of that, I started coming into contact a lot with the honor oppression victims,
Mm-hmm.
girls mainly, but not only, that were suffering really bad. And
Mm-hmm.
for a period there, me and a colleague made all of our city's risk assessments for these girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to see a lot of how it worked, when it worked good and when it didn't work well. Um, so that spurred me and my colleague to think that we can do this better than it's done today. And we started working on creating a shelter with treatment and everything for them. So towards that, that I would say it's sort of a clear path, not so many sharp turns, more deepening, I guess I could say, going deeper into deeper and more difficult issues. Then that I would say was when my turn maybe came. Then I was working extremely much. I counted back, I think 5 years where I had my phone turned on one night out of 5 years.
Wow.
That actually, of course, that night I should not have turned on my phone because I was needed. But so that took a turn on me. I was very close to burning out. But because I think I am a trained social worker on the base, I could see my own signs. So it could have ended up worse, but I still took a turn, and that's created the biggest turn in my life, the biggest crisis, I would say, as well. Right then I, at the same time, kind of, or a little bit before that actually, I met my the woman that's now my wife, and it just happened to be that she was on the other side of the planet, and that was a challenge.
Sure.
But it worked out, and I'm very happy for that. And of course, that's come with other types of challenge. Now I'm building a total different business, so that we can make sure that we can live wherever we choose that we want to live. Yeah, I don't know if that's a kind of a lengthy answer to your question, but
yes, very interesting, very interesting. So now that's a perfect segue. So tell, and before that, you mentioned something about something that really intrigued me about honor oppression. Tell us more about that. What is honor oppression?
honor oppression is when a person, or I should say like this, in some parts of the world, the community is more important than the individual. And in those parts where that is the case, a lot of times a group's honor, which comes to everything, where it comes to making business, being an honorable, honest businessman, is valued through if you are able to keep your women honorable. It is a pretty crazy idea in a way. And of course, the individual women in this suffers immensely. Whenever a woman, it can be a man too, but women are more victims of this. They can, if they choose to go on their own route, for example, choosing to go together with a boy that is not approved by the community, then the area where they are in would start talking about that, and it would impact for example, this is an example, but it would impact the dad's business. People would start talk, and they wouldn't make business with him, and therefore the community decides to make sure to re-establish the honor, and that is usually by by punishing the person that is going outside of what is allowed. It can also be it depends. If it's not something that's been visible to the outside world, it will be punishing to make sure that everything is kept within the family.
Mm-hmm.
When it's outside, the consequences needs to be something that's also seen outside. So therefore, that can mean forced marriage.
Wow.
And in the most extreme part, it can mean death and murder, and usually in a very, very aggressive, very visual way.
Wow.
For the person that has in their saying brought dishonor to the family. So that means that we had women that stayed with us that had to cut ties with everybody, friends, family, siblings, anybody, just to make sure that they were safe. And severe traumas.
Do you go as far as even some women even relocating them to another city, even changing their identity and things like that?
Yes,
And
yes,
in extreme
always,
cases?
always,
Mm-hmm.
always changing city. We never took one in the same city. It's just not possible. It would mean that they would have to stay inside the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Change of there's different types of protection for identity you can do,
Mm-hmm.
where the most severe one is to totally change the identity with
Like the
the social
name and all that.
security
Mm-hmm.
name and social security number and everything.
Sure.
That's difficult in Sweden to get
Mm-hmm.
approved.
Mm-hmm.
That usually is only granted to former, for example, gang members that are leaving and have a big threat towards their life,
Oh, wow.
or policemen and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
the other reason is that it's also a very immense program to go through. And I know people that
Sure.
have gone through that have not been able to go through the whole thing because it's such a difficult program to go through. But there are one step lower protection that works very well too, but it requires a
Mm-hmm.
lot from the individual.
What makes it difficult, the program? Is it the length? Is it what you have to do? Or what makes it difficult?
The length of the
Mm-hmm.
program, living with policemen for a very long period of time,
Really?
training,
Wow.
yeah. So that's one reason. But another reason I think is that it's generally easier for men to get this protection than for
Sure.
women.
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so it's the equality issue is at this stage as well, which is kind of sick to me, but that's how it is.
Mm-hmm. So would you say that, for example, let's say someone is a victim of, say, honor oppression, whatever, and they come to you and to your program, whatever, and then they have to change. You have to relocate them to another city, and then let's say after a few weeks, after a few months, either the family or the people try to track her down, or find them back, or even sometimes the person can just feel guilty themselves, that they can just try to reconnect themselves despite
Yes.
your advice with their family and the community, and then things start getting worse again. I'm sure you've seen that.
Well, yeah. I mean, anybody I think that
Mm-hmm.
has had a situation with their family that
Mm-hmm.
they enjoy, and all of these girls had that when they were small. They were the princess of the family. The
Sure.
attachment were very strong. That's
Mm-hmm.
part of the design, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's easy to protect somebody that's scared.
Sure.
So in the beginning of their stay, it's easy, and when they start to feel more safe, then comes all those feelings that now my family has understood because I have put down my foot, and now they know that they can't treat me this way, and they will be different. And it is a work where we unfortunately do know that we will not be able to save everybody.
So over the years, you've been doing this for 16 years. You've been involved in the social working industry for the past 16 years. Have you seen overall an increase or a decrease of the cases of honor oppression, or honor violence, and even honor killings?
Well, now it's actually a few years back that I was immersed in that type of work. So I'm not sure that my numbers today would be accurate. But I can say that this usually is affected by, right now, for example, we have a very bad situation in Afghanistan, and we can expect that we will get some refugees from these places, and some of these will have this way of thinking, and one needs to understand, I think, that it's not, and people usually get a little bit upset when I say that, but in order to help to understand this, because there is a way to understand it, and it's like, I usually say the example that if say that a father has 4 daughters, and one of them risks everything, and if we can put it into another type of situation, it comes down to the kind of the ethical, do you let go of one to save the many? In their thinking, that's what they are doing, because they think that if they don't address this, and I admit every time of the day, of course, that when I say admit this or not admit it, their levels of how they're handling that is outrageous, and brutal and just wrong. But in their mind, they have they think that they are creating a possibility for the rest of them to thrive. It's like, in their mind, it's like cutting off a bad branch of a tree to save the tree. That was not your question, but getting some of the new refugees into the city, then it can sometimes increase. It doesn't have to, and a lot of people think that this is only Muslim, and it's not. It's definitely not. It's both Muslim, Christian, and non-believers as well. It's more a cultural thing than a religious thing. But I can't really say, because it can go up and then it goes back down.
With the wave of immigrants, yes. So
and that can be one thing, yeah.
So does Sweden as programs that are meant to I wouldn't say educate, but to prepare, to train the newcomers to, hey, this is a different country. What you thought over there doesn't apply here. You need to, these are things that you need to do, these things that you not need to do, so that to ensure that this kind of, situation does not happen.
Yes, we do. But
especially for newcomers, like a training program for newcomers.
Yeah, there is. But at the same time, there is so many things that the newcomers need to learn. So this can most certainly be improved. But it's it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to crack, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Now let's move forward. Tell us what you're doing now. You're building a business. You told me that you're helping procrastinators breaking free so they can have a greater impact. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I believe that I believe that people that procrastinate are usually people that are doing good things.
Mm.
I have a feeling, and my belief is that the people that wants to do evil, they're not so keen to procrastinate.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So I think by doing that, I can actually improve the good of the world. That's one part. Another part is that I myself have been, I have experienced procrastination on a deep level. I did not when I built the business that we just talked about. I was very fired up. I worked hard, but when the hard work became too much, the procrastination came into the picture as well in some ways. After my near burnout, procrastination was a very big presence in my life, and I realized I had to find a way to break that. And during the time I did that, and even after, I have realized that there are so many people that suffers from this, and I know the suffering. I know the thoughts patterns. I know the distrust in oneself and all that, and it really is the same feeling. That's something that I've come to understand, that at least in my life, it does not matter if I have a person that's suffering really badly from procrastination and I can help them to break free from that, or if I help. Of course, one is about, like the women I helped, that was about life and death, like literally life and death, and you can't compare. But in the interaction part, whatever type of person that are in front of you, that you can help in a way that is immensely valuable to them, that creates the same feeling and reaction in me. So I chose this now because of my relationship with my wife. Sweden is very cold for her, so the plan is not to stay here. Cold and dark, yeah. And Swedes are not as social and outgoing generally as what she is used to. So we will relocate back to Brazil.
Beautiful.
One time.
What's your timeline? What's your goal? Within how long?
Within a couple of years.
Okay. Yeah. Which part of Brazil is she from?
She is from São José dos Campos. It's about an hour and a half from Sao Paulo.
Yes, so I guess that she's missing the beach and the warmth and all that. So I don't think the beaches in Sweden, the beaches in Sweden can compare to the beaches in Brazil.
According to her, we have no beaches.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us, what is your ideal client? What are you trying? What is the exact person you're trying to help and serve?
The exact person is a person that have a yearning inside of them. They might have a vision. They know they have a potential to do something, but they're never getting into doing that. They're never taking the step. They're staying stuck, and their frustration is growing. They're not understanding themselves. They're beating down on themselves because they know. Maybe they've even told some people their ideas, but the people around them have started to notice that nothing happening. So but it could be part of a redesign of one's life even. But the people that have a lot to give but are not giving it due to procrastination, which is of course an emotional block that they have for one reason or another. That's a little bit different for everybody, but there are similarities, of course. But that's what I want to do. to help a person that is not exploring their potential or not realizing their potential because of procrastination, and to break that pattern and help them to flourish.
Awesome. Now, tell us an example of the most remarkable transformation you've seen from someone that you've helped, either with your business or when you were working before as a social worker.
Well, there are a few different. Uh, I think I would like to take the last one. Actually, there are women that I have helped with the honor thing that are now living freely, happily married. Not that that is a purpose in itself to be married. That's not my point, but that have really found a new life. Some of them actually even been able to relocate, to reconnect with parts of their family in a safe way. But of course, whenever I help somebody, most of the work is done by themselves. I'm just a facilitator. But I'll take, to be more concrete, I'll take the last one.
Mm-hmm.
It was a woman that contacted me because something I wrote on a Facebook post, and I had one call with her. She had moved from South America to Canada actually, and she was in a master's degree program that she had gotten into that was very, very difficult to get there. And she felt that she was failing it very hard. She didn't have any joy in the studies anymore, but she had a joy in just studying, but doing the things that she needed to do to advance in the classes and in her thesis and everything. That was something where she was very stuck. And during that call, I was lucky enough to help her to see some things, and I gave some example of myself, which then even after the call entered her into thinking about her situation, and it spurred her into realizing that her fear of what would happen when she graduated from that and had to take a job, that was something that she feared, and she wasn't aware of that before. Mm-hmm. But when she realized that, her productivity started to flow, because when you realize something and you verbalize it, usually it loses its power over you. And that's what happened with her. Of course, I gave her some tools as well to use, and there can be backslashes, but she reconnected with me, and she, in my mind, it's not like that, but she accredited all her advancement to that call that we had.
Wow.
And she sent me a message where she said that her supervisor was clapping from a presentation that she'd done, and prior to that, her supervisor had mentioned that she needs to pick up the pace and get better. So that's my freshest one that I really treasure.
I can imagine. You know, the most beautiful, the most gratifying things when you're helping people is when you see the results, when you see the person transforming. You mentioned that now, from time to time, you get adults coming back to you that you helped when they were teenagers, and when you see the transformation from young boys or young girls that have no direction in life and going maybe down a dangerous path, and you come into their life, you show them, you bring them back on the right path, and then 5-10 years down the road, they see you again, and you see it's a completely different person. That's the most gratifying, most fulfilling, feeling you will ever feel. So yeah, that's amazing.
I agree with that.
Absolutely. Now, that's a perfect segue, because now I want to talk about cause and impact. Like, the theme of this podcast is, again, leaders with a cause, people that are building impactful business. Like, for example, for me, I'm launching soon a product on Kickstarter, and for each one, for each 5 ones I will sell, uh, with my partner, we will be sponsoring a year of education for a child in India that normally would not be able to attend school. So we'll be taking a
Yeah.
kid from the streets and bring them, giving them a chance for normal life, normal education. So that's the thing that really motivates me, is not the launch of the product, not the amount of money to be raised, but the actual impact, the number of lives to be changed. Like for us, our goal is not to raise whatever amount of money, but our goal is to be able to sponsor at least 1,000 children from the streets of New Delhi, to be able to go from the streets of New Delhi to schools. So for you, for example, for you, Daniel, what would you say is a cause that you're deeply passionate about?
I am deeply passionate about equality.
Mhm.
Uh, that's one thing. Um, but we're also talking, my wife and I, about situations in Brazil. There's
Sure,
in Sweden we don't have poverty as they do in some other places.
sure.
There are people that are not so well off, but
Hmm.
everybody is cared for if they want to be cared for.
Hmm.
Um, but so we're talking about that. She likes to. She wants to do something about kids. For me, my cause is something where I want to help people to help themselves. Uh, that could be because I have worked with teens before
Hmm.
to help them to make something out of themselves instead of going the route that everybody is. But I
Hmm.
also want to use something from my business. Of course, my whoever I help to do more good where they are. That's
Hmm.
one part. But from whatever I do, I'm gonna put part of my income into something with equality. It might be honor oppression victims work. Uh, I just need to find the right place to do that. In Sweden,
Hmm.
everything is paid with tax money, so it can't be done in Sweden. But it can be done. This is a big thing everywhere in the world.
Sure.
Uh, so so I'm not set on exactly where yet, but it'll be kids or women or a combination uh, somehow.
Love that.
Yeah,
That's amazing. And when you do that, especially in Brazil, because Brazil is a country that also uh, very dear to my heart. I spent a lot of time in Brazil, and as I keep saying to people, I'm Brazilian by heart. So when you do
yeah,
something in Brazil, let me know. And if there's any ways I can help you, maybe we can collaborate. I would be really, it would be an honor to do so. So we're
yeah,
definitely gonna
sure.
keep
I
keep
appreciate
touching
that.
into it. Very welcome. So now let me ask you some fun questions.
All right.
Imagine that you have a time machine and you can go back and sit face to face with your 18-year-old self. What would be the
Hmm.
number one piece of advice you would give to the Daniel that is 18-year-old with all the knowledge and the wisdom you have now?
Uh, well, I think one thing I would definitely say is to learn how to treat money
I
uh,
agree.
in a responsible and good way. Uh,
Yes,
that is
I
something that
agree.
I think is missing from the childhoods generally. Either you learn scarcity or you learn uh, to waste. There's no in between, and that's something that I would have sat down with myself and talked through for sure.
I
Um,
agree.
Another thing is to follow my heart. I actually found my wife by following my heart, but I was a person that went with my mind a lot. I thought through
Mm,
everything, and at this time, when I met her, I I decided that I'm gonna go with the heart on this one, and I realized that that meant some challenges, but I did it anyway, and it was a very good decision.
absolutely.
I would have told myself that at 18, so I would have probably in some way enjoyed some things even more.
Absolutely, I agree. Now, do you have your own podcast?
I don't.
Okay.
I,
Imagine that you have your podcast it's very popular, and today you have the most special guest in the world, which is yourself. So, what would be the first question you want to ask yourself? But I don't want you to
oh,
think too much. What is the first question that comes to your mind?
uh, without going into detail, but I would ask like, why did you choose to do this thing in this way? That, and
Okay.
there, like, I think I would spend some time on some of my kind of biggest mistakes or learning situations,
Mhm.
and and go through them. I don't know. I'm kind of taken on the spot by that question actually.
Okay.
Uh, what would I ask myself? I think maybe I would ask myself about my what my values are and how
Mm,
I'm living according to my values.
that's a good one. And are you currently, would you say you're living with your values fully?
Are we ever? I'm
Good
wondering.
question. Yes, I agree. It's difficult. Yes, you have to be almost a saint to really be living with what you really aspire to, because
Yeah,
nobody is perfect. There's so many distractions, so many things on the side trying to catch you and whatnot. Yeah, it's not easy.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yes, yes, yes. Now, one question I love asking, almost at the end of of this show, is what would you say is the smallest thing you've done that has had the biggest impact so far on your life? Like for me, to give an example, for me has been to start this podcast, because it allowed me to connect with incredible people, to have a lot of opportunities to be presented to me, but mostly to have amazing deep conversation with incredible people around the world. So that for me has been by far the smallest thing I've done, but has had the biggest impact in my life so far. What about you? What would you say was yours so far?
Mhm. Smallest thing I've done.
And by small, it doesn't have to be something small. By maybe what I mean is, what is the one thing that you've done that has had the biggest impact? Maybe small is not the correct word. The one thing that you've done that has had the biggest impact so far, the biggest positive impact.
Uh, I must say at this point that is when I decided to start my shelter business.
Mm,
That had the biggest impact. I
mm,
always from pretty early I always dreamed to be able to save somebody's life,
mm.
uh, and I actually think I have doing that. I'm still looking for another situation where I can do it heroically if I get the opportunity, but
As a
I just think
firefighter.
that's yeah that could have been it. Yeah, of course, maybe that was governing my want of
Mm,
that.
okay, awesome. Now, do you have any parting tips, any last words of wisdom to anyone listening and watching right now?
I think it would be. I have been thinking a lot, and I am thinking a lot about regret,
Mm,
and
yes.
I'm certain, and we've all heard it, but that we are regretting things that we didn't do.
Hmm.
Of course, because I'm doing my procrastination work. That's a big one for me and for anybody I talk with. But to really think about, to let that ponder,
Hmm.
that at the end of life we will regret more what we never got to do than what we actually tried to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is the biggest thing that I keep hearing is that, and there's a quote, I think by Mark Twain, that says, 20 years from now, the things you will regret the most are what you didn't do than what you did. And even there's a
Yeah,
study of people that are in their very last moment of life, the thing they regret the most is what they didn't do. I wish I had done that. I wish I had started this business. I wish I had ask that girl out. I wish I had done whatever, no more I wish, just do it because the worst can happen. It's a no. So what? You just move on.
Yeah,
Next.
exactly.
Next. Yeah.
Hmm.
Awesome, Daniel. Listen, it's been amazing talking to you. You're a true leader with a heart. And what is, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way to do so?
They can find me on my Facebook, Daniel Lambert.
Okay.
They can find me through my webpage, which is
Hmm.
daniellambert.com as well.
Okay.
And those are probably the two easiest ways to connect with me right now.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll put that in the show notes. As I said, it's been a blast talking to you. You're a true leader with a heart. I love what you're doing, especially your vision of helping people and your heart of, especially the story of helping honor oppressed people. That's amazing. Keep shining your light. Stay safe. Stay awesome. God bless. And I salute you. Have a wonderful day and an even better weekend. I hope you will enjoy your fishing. So
Thank you, Payman.
you're very welcome. So have a wonderful day. Take care, my friend.
Yeah, you too. Thank you
Take
for
care.
having me.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Ciao.